Remember the first seminar what I said. In order to make a change, you got to take a good feeling, a bad feeling, collapse, poof. What happens? The bad feeling fades and disappears. All changes occur exactly the same way. Honestly, what we did was basically a tapping modality, because the tapping basically steps into the stress, feel it. We use the tapping to release the stress, which creates a positive, neutral association. Now what we did is we had a picture in her mind that made her feel bad, and of course we're changing the submodalities, the pictures, the image, the sensations, and all of a sudden I said step into your favorite color. Again, we're stepping into positive feel good. As she stepped into the positive feel good, she started to feel good. Breathe it in. Notice how good that feels, and feel good about your decision. Of course, when we first started, she said, well, I'm afraid if you get rid of the picture, I'm going to have to eat meat. No. So we made it to where every decision is a good decision based on what you internally do. And let's say, for example, she had this horrible feeling and she got stuck on an island and there was nothing but meat to eat. She said, I'm going to have to starve to death. Or change your decision. The deal is, and I've said this in the seminars too, guys, I do not like labels. You know, don't say I'm a vegetarian. I may choose to eat vegetarian style, but see, you're a dynamic person. You don't want to get locked up in one style. And so, and that's what we want. I don't believe that I'm depressed. You're not depressed, you create depression. I'm heterosexual. Well, heterosexual, what you currently do, what you're choosing to do right now. You may change your mind. I'm a lesbian or a gay or whatever. Don't stick to... I'm a dynamic person. I choose what I want to choose. But see, guys, let's say, for example, if you're gay and this beautiful girl came in your life, and matter of fact, she fit all your... it was just perfect for you. He says, well, I can't have a relationship with you. I'm stuck with this gay label. Then all of a sudden, he's missing out on whatever designed for him. It could be in a perfect loving relationship. But see, the deal is we don't want to get stuck in labels. I have OCD. I said, no, you don't. You just create OCD. Now, of course, I know how OCD works. I can step into the mind of the person and help them change it. OCD is an internal process with lots of emotions and internal things, you know. And matter of fact, I was talking to, I don't know, some of you may have heard the story about the 24-year-old boy who was diagnosed with OCD. And of course, you know, he would drive down the road and they would hit a bump, and all of a sudden he had these, again, same picture. He had pictures in his mind of somebody dead under the car. And so he had to pull over about 15 times going home, and while he's at home, he kept going out to the car, looking at it, see if there's no dead bodies underneath it. But logically, he said, you know, there's a weird part about me. I know they're not, but there's something inside my mind, the pictures, making me do it. And so he came to see me this last week, and he said he didn't care. Matter of fact, he sent that video to his family. And he said, you know, and I started reading all his notes, because he'd been seeing me for 2 years, off and on. And I started reading and said, man, I forgot I used to have that obsession. We were like about 10 or 15 and said, I can't believe I used to have those. He'd do something on the other side, he'd have to wash his hands certain ways, and he had all these other obsessions, and they're all gone. He had big fears. He said, you know, and of course he couldn't speak in public, and he said, I'm making straight A's in my public speaking course in college. But the deal is stepping into the mind. What are you doing in there? And again, we're using pictures, noise, what they're creating. Secondly, the feelings. Again, what is it that drives the bus? It's the feelings. It's the emotions. And I saved this quote by Richard. He said, Richard Bandler and John Grinder in 1979 said that approximately 90% of what we do in therapy involves changing the kinesthetic responses that people have to auditory and visual stimulus. So again, what we're doing is we're addressing the pictures, the feelings, the sounds, the tastes, the smells within the person. And of course, we're using the tapping, we're using the visual switches, we're using all kinds of things. Now guys, when you start using this tapping, and you start using everything when the person's sitting right in front of you, and you're listening and you're asking questions, well, how do you know you have this? Do you have a picture? Do you have a feeling? Is there something being said? And then all of a sudden, you step into their world. And as you step into their world, you can make changes so fast. You know, of course, with the EFT method, which I started with EFT, I mean, you'd spend 30 minutes trying to get rid of one thing that I can now do in 3 minutes or less. And so what you're doing is you're now stepping in the world. You don't have to guess what word to say. You don't have to figure out. And, you know, of course, in the EFT model, you have to tune into your intuition, your psychic ability, and trying to figure out what it is. This is saving a lot of time because you don't have to guess. You let them do all the work for you because they're the one who's producing it. Does that make sense? Saves a lot of time, and you go really, really fast.
Now, if all of a sudden she realized that eating meat actually was healthy for her, you could do something like, think of something that's really pleasant, something you enjoy.
That is absolutely true.
And you could associate those two things together. Absolutely
true. Again, what drives the bus? Emotions and emotional associations. Did you hear me? Now, guys, if you want to have an addiction to ice cream, you know how you do it? Every time you eat ice cream, you think happy things. You create happy associations with people. And then all of a sudden, you can create a problem for yourself. Because, see, the deal is we are dynamic. And if you discover you're dynamic, if you understand emotional intelligence, which every seminar I teach is building emotional intelligence. That's where your power is at. Well, do you have a happy experience with your mother? And all of a sudden, she just changed. It's like the switch was turned on. She had this big smile. Oh, yes, I have wonderful memories. And then I went to another state, and all of a sudden, she was boo-hooing again. Just like this. Boom, boom, boom. When you begin to understand states and pulling people in and out of states, you can make fast state changes. And as, of course, you know, the structure of change is you collapse a good feeling and a bad feeling, you have big changes. And that's the key to change. And so how many of you this last week has been, I mean, since the seminars, you've been tapping a lot? Been tapping on people? Been tapping on big changes for yourself or other people? So let me give you the microphone and just kind of share the difference. I mean, you've been to all, this is the third seminar, the training seminar. Can you explain the differences now that you're doing it compared to what you had before?
I actually am combining some of the other things. Combining the picture switching, always ending with the happy memories. And in the past, I didn't always do that. I didn't remember to do that. So that's very helpful. The man I was working with a few weeks ago was diagnosed with diabetes. His blood sugar was running 348, so it's pretty high. We did the tapping, and we did a lot of picture switching. And we used Louise Hay. We went through the diabetes. We tapped away all the negative stuff, and we added in the powerful affirmations. And then the next morning, his blood sugar was 170. The following morning was 117. So it was just, I mean, he's making great changes, and his whole essence has changed. You know, he's lighter, he's joyful. It's just wonderful.
So how do you compare what you're doing now to the past, you know?
Oh, it's quicker, much more efficient, bigger changes.
Yeah.
And easier, much easier to do.
I think somebody said something. You were going to share something.
Well, I told you before about my friend in Ohio who's in the nursing home, and we had done the tapping over the phone, you know, and it had helped her. Well, then and I talked to her another time, and we did some picture switching. Well, she's been in such an emotional turmoil that they have her seeing a psychiatrist once a week in the nursing home. And so, first of all, she talked to the psychiatrist about the tapping. You know, she said, "Oh, my friend called me, and you know, we did this and all this, and you know." And the psychiatrist just was amazed at the results, you know, was real interested in that. Thank God she has a psychiatrist that's open to alternative things, you know. Then the next thing, Barbara saw the psychiatrist again and told her about this picture switching, you know, and was describing it to her. And so Barbara had the psychiatrist picture something in her mind. And she said, "Okay, now is it in color or black and white, blah, 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 blah." She said, "Okay, well, take the color out of it. Just change it to black and white." So the psychiatrist did, and she was like, "Oh, my God, that really takes the emotion out of it." And so here's the psychiatrist that spent, 6 years in med school, you know, residency, all this stuff, has been in practice for all this time. And all of a sudden, she loves this technique, and she's ready to start using it with her patients. And it was like, you know, hey, yeah, we're doing better than the shrinks.
Yeah.
That was just really funny.
Isn't that awesome, though? And it is so simple.